This video identifies the best sources of definition content. We will discuss several sources. The sources are existing popular reports, data dictionaries or other material provided by vendors, a pre-existing local glossary, and then last is a reporting agency such as IPEDS. And these are the order that IData recommends you look at. So existing popular reports is by far the best source of definitions, and then they become increasingly less recommended. They're still useful, but they just generally, the farther down you go in the list, the more editing they will require to meet your glossary standards and data cookbook. So let's take a look at each one of these. So an existing popular report, again, this is really IData's preferred source of definitions because it will automatically situate your data elements within a context that is important to your environment. If you select your top most popular 10 reports in any given domain, so this is a basic spring enrollment report that consists of each row is a student, and there's then the typical course metadata, CRM, the subject, the course title, the grade for the student, and the instructor. So those blue column headers are the pretty basic in the enrollment reporting environment. So my red text is my recommendation for what the data cookbook glossary entry label would be. So title would be course title. Full press name would be student name. Spring 2017 might have two definitions needed. One would be term and the other one current term. ID would actually be student ID in order to differentiate it from employee ID, and so on. But the report itself will ensure that you are defining data elements that are important, and the context will help you with efficiency by grouping like data elements together. So this is pretty much the set of enrollment from the course standpoint, the enrollment metadata, and most of them are here, and it's easy to sit down in one sitting and define them together as a set. So popular pre-existing reports is our #1 choice for definition sources. Next is any pre-existing local glossaries. Prior to your use of data cookbooks, some departments may have created and published a list of glossary entries. This is an example that I took off the web. It's from Cornell University. It's freely available on the web. And this is some glossary language around research data management. So to move this material, you may be able to move it directly into Data Cookbook and import it, or you may have to lightly edit it in order to conform to the standards of content that you're trying to ensure in Data Cookbook. But it's a great source. Next, we move into some vendor-provided information. This is also taken off of the web from Workday Financial. They publish a glossary based on each of the modules that they offer. This is from the finance module. And this glossary consists of Workday-specific vocabulary, but also some basic finance language as well. And the writing style here is a business glossary appropriate. You may not, at your institution, if you are a Workday financial client, you may not use all of these entries. And so without a tie to your specific reporting environment, you don't have a clear picture of which of these glossary entries would be irrelevant to your environment. The other type of material from a vendor is called the more classic data dictionary. And this is very technical in nature, and while there is sometimes a narrative definition, in this case we see that the definition for admit type is a code to give admissions additional flexibility in identifying subpopulations. The definition there tends to be, in the data dictionaries, tend to be very circular and of poor quality for a business glossary and require more substantive editing. But they can be, the dictionary itself can be a starting point for looking for vocabulary. It's been my experience that a data dictionary will shrink in size when it's being transposed into a business glossary. It'll shrink anywhere from half to a third of its size. And it shrinks because at the data dictionary level, let's take an example of a code like this one. Well, there may be the code, there may be a code description. Well, there's two data dictionary entries for what would be defined as simply a code in the business glossary and data cookbook. Even it could be three. It could be the code, the short code description, and the long code description. So there's three data dictionary items that would be collapsed in data cookbook into a single glossary entry, and those three data dictionary items would be documented in your technical definition. The other classic example of collapse is around addresses. Address 1, address 2, address line 3, city, state, zip code, county, country, all of that, 5 or 6 elements would be in your data cookbook glossary collapsed into something called student forwarding address or employee home address. So there's a lot of collapse in data dictionary as a source for a business glossary. Last source to look at is a third-party reporting agency. This is an example from iPads. The writing style is usually very narrative and business glossary focused, but often the scope of what they are addressing, in this case all of higher education in the United States, tends to create a set of vocabulary that is too broad for a single institution. So it covers everything from a community college through a Carnegie Level 1 research institution. So you need to edit out the vocabulary that is not needed by your institution because it's not relevant to the type of school you have. What we do not recommend as a source of your definitions is just out of the blue. That is, there is no context there, and there is it's just very challenging to sit down with a blank piece of paper and make a list of vocabulary. So that is the list that IData recommends as your source of definitions. Most clients use a mix of these. They may use numbers 1 and 3 more heavily, but may use a mix of all 4.